Black Star Network is here.
Hold no punches.
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?
Folks, today is Tuesday, February 3rd, 2026, coming up on Roland Martin Unfiltered, streaming live on the Black Star Network. Donald Trump's calling Republicans to take over and nationalize our elections as the 2026 midterms loom. Yeah, every House seat, 35 Senate seats on the line. History shows the stakes couldn't be higher. We'll talk with Cliff Albright, Executive Director of Black Voters Matter. Well, folks, Democratic Caucus members demand the firing of Ice Barbie. That's right. Christy Noem will show you what happened today at their news conference. Former Texas Congressman Colin Allred taking shots at State Rep James Talarico, calling him allegedly a mediocre black man. He'll join us to discuss that U.S. Senate race and their conversations. We'll take a look at a new report on black workers facing higher unemployment than the overall workforce. After the fatal shooting of Keith Porter by an off-duty ICE agent in Los Angeles, his family is demanding an investigation. The family attorney, Ben Crump, will join us. Talk to one of the attorneys representing Tuskegee University's head basketball coach who was arrested after Saturday's game against Morehouse. We'll talk with Harry Daniels. Plus, in our Black Star Network Marketplace segment, Miss Jet Setter's founder turned her love of travel into a thriving business, creating stylish, functional travel accessories for travelers on the go. It's time to bring the funk on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now.
The twice impeached, criminally convicted felon-in-chief Donald the Con Trump again attacking our democracy and our voting rights. With the 2026 midterm elections approaching, Trump is calling on Republicans to take over and nationalize voting. The push comes as every seat in the House and 35 Senate seats in the Senate will be up for grabs. Republicans currently hold the majority of the House by one vote. History shows midterm elections often turn against the party sitting in the White House. 2025, MAGA pushed for mid-decade redistricting to gain additional House seats. Well, just last month, Trump warned Republicans they must win the midterms or he could face impeachment. This is what he actually said today. When he was questioned in the Oval Office about his nationalization comments.
And what exactly did you mean when you said that you should nationalize elections? And which 15 states are you talking about?
I want to see elections be honest. And if a state can't run an election, I think the people behind me should do something about it. Because, you know, if you think about it, a state is an agent for the federal government in elections. I don't know why the federal government doesn't do them anyway. But when you see some of these states about how horribly they run their elections, what a disgrace it is, I think the federal government, when you see crooked elections, and we had plenty of them, and by the way, we had them last time, but go to 2020 and look at the facts that are coming out. Rigged, crooked elections. If we have areas, take a look at Detroit, take a look at Pennsylvania, take a look at Philadelphia. You go take a look at Atlanta. Look at some of the places that horrible corruption on elections. And the federal government should not allow that. The federal government should get involved. These are agents of the federal government to count the votes. If they can't count the votes legally and honestly, then somebody else should take over.
I hope y'all notice he only named the places where there are black people in significant numbers. But he's been doing that since 2020. Remember, who did he target after he lost in 2020? Atlanta, Philadelphia, Milwaukee, Detroit. That's what's going on here. It's clear. Cliff Albright, Executive Director of Black Voters Matter, joins us right now. Cliff, I don't understand why states are agent of the federal government. Go to my iPad, Anthony. There's a thing, Cliff, that this idiot's never read the Constitution. The 10th Amendment states, the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. The reality, Cliff, is we don't have federal elections. Elections are actually governed by states, state election boards, state law. Now, there are things that Congress can do, because when you're talking about presidential races, U.S. Senate races, congressional races, but even still, that's working in concert with the states. But you notice, he said nothing about Alabama, Mississippi, Arkansas, Texas, Florida, South Carolina, Nebraska, Idaho, North Dakota, South Dakota. Oh, he made no mention of any red white states.
Yeah, and to be clear, what's going on, Roland? And to be clear, you know, for folks that are watching, you may see some other clips, some interviews that have been done from some of these other Republicans where they're trying to clean up what he said. You got them out there trying to say he's talking about the SAVE Act, right? Which is bad enough, which is about, you know, trying to have voter ID in order to keep something from happening, which literally never happens, which is non-citizens voting. But that's bad enough. But they're trying to cover up what he said to say, oh no, he was talking about this other thing. And then he came back and doubled down. It was basically like, I said what I said. And what he said is exactly what you played, which is that he thinks that they ought to be able to go in and take over these elections in these states. And to be more clear, really, he's just talking about certain cities in these states, as you correctly pointed out, when they tried to overturn the 2020 election. He was really complaining about Atlanta and Detroit and Philadelphia, right? All these black cities. And so this is consistent with what he's been saying. And what he does is that he runs these things up the flagpole. He'll say these things. He'll repeat them every now and then. He'll test out the reactions. And next thing you know, you got ICE agents outside polling places. He was very clear what he's talking about. So don't let anybody gaslight you and act like he's just talking about, some vague concepts of election security. He is talking about federal officials going in, running these elections. And more specifically, what he really cares about is what? I think it was the last sentence of what he said, which is the count. He said, we need to be able to come in and do the counts. Now, here's a man who has cheated on everything in his entire life, including the 2020 election, and he wants to be able to control the counts taking place in these cities.
Right.
And we got to connect the dots, as I know that you have already, with the raid that took place, the stealing of the ballots in Fulton County just the other day.
Well, here is House Speaker Republican Mike Johnson speaking on the very issue. And again, listen to the BS.
Follow up on elections. The president says that he wants Republicans to nationalize elections. Do you agree with him? And do you have confidence in how elections are conducted right now, heading into the midterm?
We have thoughtful debate about our election system every election cycle and sometimes in between. We know it's in our system. The states have been in charge of administering their elections. What you're hearing from the president is his frustration about the lack of some of the blue states, frankly, of enforcing these things and making sure that they are free and fair elections. We need constant improvement on that front. I don't know what the ultimate solution is going to be. I'm not going to get ahead of the negotiations here, but I think that is something that's going to be a continuing theme here. It's something that we'll continue to push, and we hope the governors will insist upon that same thing as well. In some of the states, like in California, for example, I mean, they hold the elections open for weeks after Election Day. That's just one thing that bothers so many people. We had 3 House Republican candidates who were ahead on Election Day in the last election cycle. And every time a new tranche of ballots came in, they just magically whittled away until their leads were lost. And no series of ballots that were counted after Election Day were our candidates ahead on any of those counts. It looks on its face to be fraudulent. Can I prove that? No, because it happened so far upstream. But we need more confidence in the American people in the election system, and it's essential. And everybody, no matter what party you're in, should agree with that. The mass mailing of paper ballots or mail-in ballots and all the other irregularities that have haunted us over the last couple of cycles, we need to tighten that up. Now, the red states have done a lot of good work in that front, but it's the blue states that I'm frankly concerned about. So we'll see how the law is modified and what's changed, but I hope we can get consensus to get that done. Yeah.
Oh, so he's only concerned about the blue states, and when he complains about this, Cliff, first of all, he's a liar. Then he goes, well, I can't prove it. Yeah, you can't prove it because it doesn't exist. Here's what we know. Depending upon your state, you have some states that say, okay, your ballot, if you mail it in, must be postmarked by Election Day. Some allow a certain period of days for overseas balloting that actually takes place. What you also have that people somehow seem not to understand is that when you have some places where they don't count early votes until after 7 p.m. on that particular night. So different jurisdictions have different rules. And the Republicans don't want to deal with that. And it's like, oh, my God, it's like California is weeks after the fact. Yes, because, again, if you allow folks for mail-in, and see, here's the real deal. They hate the fact that, and this is what we know, they are on record. If more people in America vote, they stand a higher chance of losing. They want fewer people voting, Cliff.
Clearly, and I wish I had $1 every time one of them was caught on camera or some recording somewhere admitting as much, hoping that the weather is bad, hoping that, the voter ID does what it was designed to do in order to keep Democrats writ large, but more specifically Black and brown voters from being able to vote. Like, they've been very clear about what it is that they're trying to do. And in fact, if you listen to what, in that clip, what Mike Johnson said at the very beginning, where he's talking about the states having jurisdiction over these elections, and he says the states have been running these elections. He doesn't say the states are. It doesn't say the states are supposed to. He doesn't say that the states are going to continue, right? He says the states have. I mean, he has not taken off the table doing exactly what it is that Trump wants him to do, right? Which is to try to federalize, to nationalize, or at least to excuse and turn a blind eye when Trump tries to do whatever he's going to try to do. And so this is a very serious situation. But we've, as we always say, we've got the power to do something, right? As voters, as organizations, as journalists like you. But we also need folks to be having folks who have elected power in some of these states, especially the blue states that they're targeting, to be very mindful, right? To not wait for November, whatever, and then be surprised if there's some attempt to try to federalize these and nationalize these elections. We need them to be taking some steps right now to prepare for that. Whether it's steps like, what some of the states are doing now. Tish James just said something in regards to ICE and the way that they're going to be monitoring ICE. But we've got to make sure that states are prepared to push back if there is any attempt to nationalize these elections. And we have to also keep in mind that it's not just blue states, because as I mentioned before, and as you mentioned, Atlanta is not a blue state,
no,
right? At least not yet. But they are very, Georgia, I should have said, is not a blue state yet, but Atlanta is a blue dot within this state that they very much want to try to take over. And that's what that raid was about the other day. It's part of a process by which they're trying to take over the Fulton County elections.
Well, and the other thing is this here, and this is what is so laughable. There were many Republicans and Democrats on the ballot in all of these states. Mm-hmm. The only candidate, the only person who is whining is the person who lost in 2020. So what Donald Trump is saying, that everybody else is on the ballot, every gubernatorial candidate, every U.S. Senate, every U.S. House, oh my God, all of them, all of their elections were fine except mine, but it was the same one as everybody else.
And we have to remind people, again, Mike Johnson says, can I prove it? No, but, like it's not something that's been investigated. The last election was one of the most recounted, audited, I'm sorry, not the last election, 24. That needed to be, we needed more audits in 24, but that's another story. But the 2020 election was one of the most recounted, audited elections ever, right? Even here in Georgia, 3 separate accounts, machine and by hand. And yet, they never, and keeping in mind that all this stuff that he's saying, oh, take a look at Georgia, take a look at Pennsylvania. Guess what? They've been looked at. The courts looked at them. He had like 60 cases where courts were looking at them, and every single one where they asked for some evidence of what he was talking about, there was no evidence, right? Rudy Giuliani facing all kinds of lawsuits because he was out there running his mouth, claiming that some stuff happened that absolutely did not happen, that they had absolutely no evidence for. So all of this has been looked at. And for Mike Johnson to act like this is just, something that there's no history of, no documentation of, that hasn't been, litigated, is just, if Mike Johnson's mouth is moving, he's lying. Right. And so at the end of the day, again, we've got to take these threats, these comments, we've got to take them very seriously. We've got to put aside this notion of American exceptionalism, because even as we're talking about this right now, there are some folks out there listening saying, oh, but that could never happen, right? Because this is America. Like, surely there aren't elections that are just nationalized. Like, surely you couldn't have federal troops or ICE agents at polling places, right? There's still, even after everything that we've seen, there's still some of us that, want to believe that there are certain things that could not happen in this country, in spite of everything that we've seen, and not just everything that we've seen recently, but in spite of our history in this country, ever since we've been here, and particularly in the ways that Reconstruction was ended. You had Black elected officials that were literally dragged out of chambers, who had been elected to these chambers, right? And so we need not confuse ourselves and think that something like this, something like what he's proposing, couldn't happen here.
Last point for folks who don't understand. If you don't vote, then you allow these folks to win and for them to be in control.
Yes, that's the bottom line. At the end of the day, in spite of what they're saying, in spite of the seriousness of it, we don't want folks to be like scared into being paralyzed, right? It's about being aware and knowing what's going on, but still doing everything that we can to take action. And that means not just us voting, but it also means all the other things that we've got to be doing to stay vigilant, to continue to organize, whether it's in the streets or any of the other ways that we're organizing. But we've got to remember that we've got to use the vote, but we also got to use all the other tools in the toolboxes. It doesn't mean that voting is not absolutely critical. It is critical. It is absolutely critical. But we also got to be aware that when we're facing the kinds of things like what he's talking about and the kinds of things that we're seeing, we got to be fully prepared to vote and prepared to do all the other work that we've got to do.
All right.
If we do that, we win.
Indeed. Cliff Albright, we appreciate it, man. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bringing my pound, Dr. Mustafa Santiago Ali, former senior advisor for environmental justice at the EPA, joining us from D.C. Win Cooney, CEO, co-founder of Politicking out of D.C. Joe Richardson, civil rights attorney out of Los Angeles. I'm going to play for y'all. This is 1981. Paul Weyrich, we played this many times before, founder of the Heritage Foundation, founder of the Moral Majority. This man was, frankly, seen as a little g god by the right wing. This is what he said in Dallas in 1981, and this is what the GOP believes in 2026.
The goo-goo syndrome. Good God.
No, come back to me. Come back to me. Let me set it up. All right, the cable should now be straight. Let's go.
Now, many of our Christians have what I call the goo-goo syndrome. Good government. They want everybody to vote. I don't want everybody to vote. Elections are not won by a majority of people. They never have been from the beginning of our country, and they are not now. As a matter of fact, our leverage in the elections, quite candidly, goes up as the voting populace goes down.
Mustafa, that's the whole point. Republicans say that today. That's what Donald Trump is talking about. That's what Mike Johnson is talking about. That's what this SAVE Act is all about.
Yeah, and you know, they're saying it just like they feel it, and we have to make sure that we are addressing it. You know, they understand. You know, this is all strategy. This is strategy that's been put in place for decades now, that if you can impact just percentages of voters, then that you can change the dynamics for elections and who gets elected. And we have to understand that dynamic as well. You know, we talk about on the show regularly about just getting enough of our additional folks who have not voted to vote and how you can reclaim your power. And when you reclaim your power, you can make sure that resources are flowing to our communities. You can make sure that we are addressing sort of the injustices that continue to happen inside of our communities, all the positive things that come out of it. But that means that you've got to understand the game. And they have laid out for you exactly what they're trying to accomplish. So now we have to make sure that we address it in a way that is beneficial for our communities.
And I mean, when people need to understand it, and Black folks and others do the right wing a huge favor when we sit out elections. What did Donald Trump say to Black people after 2016? Thank you, Black people, for not voting.
Well, Roland, we know that they plainly say, I don't want everyone to vote, because we know the concept of civic engagement is an inherently liberal one, right? The concept of inclusivity is an inherently liberal concept, right? It goes everything against what conservatives stand for. When we think about how many people didn't vote in 2024, it's close to 90 million people. So Donald Trump is effectually right. Thank you, Black people, brown people who had the right to vote right now due to the forefathers fighting to make sure that we did have the right to vote, but still are facing this crippling voter apathy, right? That I think a lot of Black and brown people are facing. They just simply do not care enough to be engaged about what's going on. And I think I'm speaking to my generation here when I say it's not enough to go on Twitter and Facebook and X and all the rest of Truth Social and to express your opinions there when you're not going out to the polls and voting. And this is my issue with the younger generation, is oftentimes we're very vocal online and we're not vocal at the ballot box. And we need to make sure that we're doing both.
Joe, people who don't understand history don't realize that everyone didn't used to be elected. The reality is this country was positioned for landowners, mainly white landowners, to determine America's politics. The Electoral College is a compromise for that very reason. And the reality is the House and the Senate, they used to pick, or state legislators used to pick who represents them, not the people. People need to understand, America is not a democracy. America is a republic. And the difference between the two is a republic is we vote on people to represent our interests versus direct. Republicans hate democracy. They hate it. We have examples, Ohio, Utah, Michigan, where the voters decided on bills and they were like, yeah, we can overturn the will of the voter. We don't care. These were state constitutional votes, and they said, nah, we think differently. They overruled the will of the people.
Yeah, I mean, we excuse me, we never were democratic in the truest sense. And that's what makes it really important for us to all vote, because they know that even with this imperfect, not totally democratic system, if we all vote, they will still lose. They know that. They said it out loud for many, many years. And so when the Electoral College is flooded, where state by state, everybody that can vote does, and people get off the bench and get in the game and vote, then folks win that Republicans don't necessarily want to win. That's always been the case. So the game has always been to keep people from voting and let's become even less democratic, right? So that those of us that are landowners, that are white male, that are, that think a certain way, that look a certain way, that talk a certain way, we get to make the decisions. They're scared to death, as you say in your book, because they're getting ready to be outnumbered. And from an opinion standpoint, from a policy standpoint, they already are outnumbered. Most Republican parties' policies are less popular, okay? They're less popular. They're not getting more popular. They're even finding a way to screw up immigration, which was supposedly their issue. They're actually losing on that. They're underwater on that. And so if they can continue to make the suggestion to people that it's too hard to vote, that it's not worth voting, or that your vote doesn't count, now you're not going to vote. And they say, thank you. We have to vote so overwhelmingly that even for the votes that get stolen, that get confused, that get lost, they still lose. Because when we show up and vote, they lose. And they know that. And it's about time that we act like we know that, so that we do everything we can. Too many people fought, died, bled for the right to vote, and people sitting on their behind, particularly people of modest means. I love my brothers and sisters, but you out here on Section 8 and you think you're chilling and everything is well, you better be careful. Your Section 8 might go away. Then what? You better vote like your ass depends on it. Put it to you that way.
Indeed, indeed. All right, folks, we'll keep seeing what these folks want to do, but trust me, they're serious about this. Got to go to a break. We come back. We'll talk black unemployment numbers right here on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Next on the Black Table with me, Greg Carr. Succession. We're hearing that word pop up a lot these days as our country continues to fracture and divide. But did you know that idea, essentially a breaking up of the USA, has been part of the public debate since long before and long after the Civil War, right up to today? On our next show, you'll meet Richard Crichton, the author of this book, who says breaking up this great experiment called America might not be such a bad thing. That's on the next Black Table, right here on the Black Star Network.
My name is Bill Duke, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Black workers are experiencing higher unemployment rates compared to the unemployment rate of all workers. That ain't nothing new. The Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies conducted an analysis using Bureau of Labor Statistics data that shows the inequities faced by black workers in 2025. Employment disparities have increased due to major policy shifts since Donald Trump's second term began. The federal hiring freeze, government workforce reductions, and the rollbacks of DEI and affirmative action policies have severely impacted black workers. Dr. Gabrielle Finney, the Joint Center's senior policy analyst, joins us right now. I'm glad to have you here. So what really jumps out to you the most for this? Go to my iPad, folks. You'll see it right here. It's Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies. Workforce Policy Job Day Analysis 2025. Y'all can go to their website, jointcenter.org, to check it out. All right, so what jumps out the most for you?
Yeah, a lot of things jump out. And like you said, it's nothing new, but it very much is alarming. In 2025, the Black unemployment rate reached over 8%, which is the highest in 4 years.
What was it? What was the lowest under Biden? Because the lowest black unemployment ever recorded happened under President Biden.
So what I do know on my list of stats here, I have the highest unemployment rate in 2023 was 6%.
Got it. Okay. I'll pull the number. Go ahead.
All right. So going back to some of those highlights again, looking at the highest unemployment rate for Black women was 8%, which was in November. And for Black men, it was 8.4%. Looking at the average unemployment rate for young Black workers, it increased from 13.2% in 2024 to 15% in 2025. And I would also like to add those 2025 numbers only include 11 months of data, and those 2024 numbers include all 12 due to the government shutdown. We don't have October data. So also another highlight, the 8.2 unemployment rate for Black workers in November was the highest monthly unemployment rate for any racial group during any month of the year. So again, we haven't seen consistently high unemployment numbers like this since 2020 and 2021. And if these Black numbers were seen nationwide, it would undoubtedly be considered a recession.
You look at this chart right here, the lowest ever, it fell under 5% to 4.7%. under President Biden. So the reality is it was 4.7% and as low as under Biden. Donald Trump, 8.2% in 2025.
Again, like I said, we know there's always been some greater disparities for sure. But when we're looking at these numbers and looking at the reality today, it is very much alarming and eye-opening. It definitely needs to change.
I saw this one loudmouth on Yahoo doing a video saying Donald Trump has never targeted Black people. That's a lie. The reality is Black people were indeed targets of Donald Trump, Elon Musk, and Doge in 2025. That's just a fact when you look at the numbers.
And it's true. And thinking of Black women and Black men specifically, so last year, over 270,000 federal jobs were lost. An estimated 200,000 of them were held by Black women. So again, going back to the targeting, those different impacts definitely had disproportionate impacts for Black workers specifically. Those policy changes, again, directly impact. And it's strategic and it's very deliberate as well.
So when we look at going beyond the federal government jobs, the reality is that the attacks on DEI, the attacks on diversity, equity, inclusion, all of that by targeting corporate America and by using the government to say, in the case of Brendan Carr to FCC, we're not going to improve any mergers and things along those lines. That also impacted because now you have corporations who are now bowing down to Trump and their demands. So we were getting hit in corporate, we were getting hit in government work, federal, state, local, corporate America as well. Contracts. So you might not be a Black federal worker, but if you actually had a federal contract in a Black-owned business, you got screwed in 2025.
Yeah, and I also like to add, technology is rapidly shaking our workforce today as well, too. So thinking of, like you said, corporate America, federal jobs, I mean, things are being changed rapidly through automation, through AI, and just tech as well. So I think that is another perspective to add, but also thinking about what opportunities are available for Black workers, but also who's at risk to be threatened to lose these jobs as well due to automation.
Absolutely. Again, it's just something people need to understand. Questions from our panel. Win Cooney, you first.
Yeah, so when we look at the unemployment numbers from Donald Trump to Joe Biden, we see that they've doubled under Donald Trump. So my question is, what kind of preventative measures do you think Black Americans should be taking to ensure that they're not hit by this latest spike in unemployment?
Yeah, I think that's a phenomenal question. And I would definitely say seeking out upskilling and reskilling opportunities. Like I mentioned, technology is rapidly changing our workforce, and it's important that we stay adept, stay nimble, stay mobile, and also keeping gaining new skills. I think there's a lot of opportunities through post secondary education and also non degree credential programs to kind of get more education to stay agile, to be in this evolving and changing workforce as well.
Thank you.
Joe?
Yeah, I wonder. I saw how big the numbers are in terms of unemployment for young folks. What do you attribute that to? And are they, because it said age 16 to 24, are there people that demonstrably have tried to get in to the workforce or have been in the workforce already? It's just so early for them, but it's interesting to see how big those numbers are for people that age. What do you attribute that to?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of factors. And I think one factor that sometimes is not always acknowledged is the rapidly changing workforce, but also the opportunities available for entry level workers. Again, as technology continues to come in, a lot of these entry level workers or, stepping stone opportunities are not necessarily open anymore for folks. But also, when you have a competitive workforce out there, but also limited jobs, sometimes the skills gap is definitely the deal breaker there, or even the experience. So sometimes it could be just lack of experience, skills gap. Again, a lot of people are competing for these jobs, so we do need a little bit more data to kind of deep dive into those impacts. It's specific to young workers, but I do think some of those are key factors as well too.
Mustafa?
So we're moving into we are now in a midterm year. What would be the message that you would send to those folks who are going to be asking for our vote? What would be the highlighted sort of points that you would want them to focus upon?
I think it's really about creating targeted solutions or having a solution. I know we have a lot of data out there that is just explaining what is happening, but we don't have a lot of proactive solutions to address these issues. So I would definitely say continue to strategize, continue to figure out, and using this data as informative to inform your policies, to inform your future actions. But I think there's no time to waste, right? We have to strategize and have some actionable steps, and we have to hold these folks accountable as well too. So I think it's more of a two-parter. One, having some strategy behind it, but also holding folks accountable when they do get into office, so we're not continuing to have conversations and continue to look at these amplified numbers as well too.
All right, Gabrielle Finney with the Joint Center. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Folks, today at a rally in D.C., word was simply Kristi Noem has got to go. That's the ICE Barbie. That was the sentiment outside the ICE headquarters, where the Democratic Caucus members demanded the firing of the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. Members of the Congressional Black Caucus spoke out, stating that if Trump does not fire her, they are prepared to move forward with impeachment.
Like so many Americans, we are outraged by what we continue to see in our American cities on our streets daily. ICE is operating without guardrails. We have seen violence, chaos, and lawlessness in Minnesota, in my state of Georgia, and in communities across America. It cannot stand. We have watched our neighbors terrorized and brutalized, and we have seen innocent Americans killed in cold blood by masked ICE agents who believe that they are above the law. Agents funded by American taxpayer dollars, yet apparently they are accountable to no one. Let's be clear. The presence of ICE in our communities is not about public safety. This is about stoking fear, silencing peaceful dissent, and turning Americans against one another. This is a direct attack on civil rights and due process to target communities of color, instilling fear in Black, Latino, Asian, and immigrant communities, and anyone who dares to speak out against the Trump administration. Kristi Noem has refused to provide Congress or the American people with the transparency and the justice that we and the families of those murdered by masked agents deserve and demand. This depravity starts at the top, and she must be held accountable. She must resign or face impeachment. Let's go! The Congressional Black Caucus and House Democrats will not back down. We are not backing down. And we will continue standing with our communities because they deserve that and so much more. And to our neighbors who have chosen to protest peacefully, stay strong, stay peaceful, and rise above the chaos. The right to protest, to speak out against injustice is fundamental to our democracy. It's protected by our Constitution.
We do not exaggerate when we say we have schools where 2/3 of the students are afraid to go to school. We do not exaggerate when we say we have people who are afraid to go to the hospital because our hospitals have occupying paramilitary forces. We do not exaggerate when we say our restaurants are shutting down because there are not enough people to drive the employees to work and from work. We do not exaggerate when I say we have people who are housing other people because they are afraid to go home.
That's right.
And that is all happening in an American city. We have two neighbors, two of my constituents, who were shot by federal agents as cameras recorded. And their president maligned their name and told us not to believe our eyes.
Shame.
When we say it is time for Noem to go, we mean it now.
Let's go!
When we say there needs to be accountability for the architect of the terror we are facing in Minneapolis and so many other cities, which is Stephen Miller, we mean we need accountability for him now.
Let's go.
So thank you all for being here. Thank you for joining the call to get ICE out of our cities, for us to dismantle this department that is not just rogue, but unlawful. And yes, obviously, if Noem does not resign and the president doesn't fire her, Democrats are ready and willing to impeach her.
And you may not know my name, but Noem sure does.
All right.
Because this administration is trying to put me in prison for 17 years for standing up to the department she leads, for standing up to ICE. Because that is what this administration does. I represent communities in New Jersey that live in constant fear. Families too terrified to step outside, send their kids to school, go grocery shopping, or take a trip to the doctor because of the harassment of ICE and Homeland Security. And when I stood up to protect them, this administration came after me. Yep. Secretary Noem tried to shame me, she tried to embarrass me, and she tried to smear me.
Wrong.
But I am not ashamed of doing my job and protecting the people. Christy, this is for you. You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
That's right.
You pretend to be tough. You stage pictures with agents. You call citizens domestic terrorists. And you gleefully terrorize our communities because you are a coward. You are a liar, and you are a threat to the safety of our communities.
That's right.
In my own community, in communities across this country, people have died under the watch of DHS. And I have seen with my own eyes the brutal cruelty of the ICE facilities that she has tried to keep us out of, that she is trying to hide from you, the American people. So I say it plain and simple. Noem must go.
That's right. Let's go.
And if she does not go, we will impeach her.
There you
and
go.
I'll give you one final word. I will not rest until she is.
Well, folks, the pressure will continue on her. All right, then. Something happened. In fact, we're going to play this story next, y'all. It's really an insane story. It took place Saturday. How can you be a HBCU basketball coach? Game's over, and you end up in handcuffs because some crazy, outlandish security guard. Coming up next, my interview with Harry Daniels talking about the arrest of the Tuskegee head basketball coach. That's on Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Hey, don't forget to support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to contribute to what we do, please do so. Cash out, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. This is the QR code. You can use it for credit cards as well. Checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196. That's right, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal's R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo's RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. We'll be right back.
Violent white supremacy is, quote, the most persistent and lethal threat in the homeland.
The greatest terrorist threat to the homeland is the homegrown violent restraint, including hate crime committed on behalf of some kind of white supremacist ideology.
They are coming after everything in Black America. MAGA and Donald Trump are specifically targeting Black America. They are going after the money. Attack Black Lives Matter. Attack critical race theory. Attack woke, DEI. MAGA wants to defund Black America. This is a perfect example of their desire to completely degrade and de-emphasize Black people.
I'm Ryan Wilson, CEO and co-founder of The Gathering Spot, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
Folks, crazy thing happened at Morehouse over the weekend. Earlier today, it was just crazy story, y'all. I was hosting the Breakdown with Brittany Noble. She had the day off. And I talked with Harry Daniels, the attorney. We normally have Harry talking about civil rights cases, but he's actually representing the Tuskegee University basketball coach after he was arrested. Just crazy. Game against Morehouse, and they decided to arrest him. Here's the video. This is the video of what took place at Morehouse. Unbelievable. Roll it. Yo, pretty insane. The coach was complaining that security protocols were violated, and he's the one who ended up in handcuffs. Here's my conversation earlier with Harry Daniels, Benji Taylor's lawyer.
Harry, I've never seen this before. I've never seen this before, where a basketball coach who is simply saying, "Hey, what's going on here?" Then he gets arrested. So Benji Taylor has hired you. Walk us through what the heck is going on.
Thanks, Roland. I've never seen it before because it never happened before. Coach Taylor, like you described before, the football players were along the baseline under the goal, and they were heckling the players on the bench, equipment managers, and so on. And the rule in the conference says that fans cannot be on the floor. I mean, obviously, I know the football players are student athletes, but we're not at a football game, we're at a basketball game. You know, he complained about it throughout the game. At some point, an officer went down and stood with the football players, but they continued to act in the same way before. It seemed like the officer was actually laughing along with him. Then after the game, during the ceremonial, handshake, when the players come to shake hands at the end of the game, the football players decided to join the basketball players, like, hey, we're going to do what we want to do. And coach who is on the committee of the rules. He's the head of the conference basketball, men's basketball. He's the chair. He complained about the security and safety that that the police officer or the security staff there failed to adhere to. And once he had a conversation and disagreement, one of the officers asked him who was he talking to, and the coach said, "I'm talking to you." And the officer put him in handcuffs, arrested him in front of his players, family, friends, and sent him through a perp walk in front of the gymnasium full of people, 1,000 people. This is the most ridiculous thing. That we have a lot of cases, and we deal with a lot of cases dealing with police misconduct. But you have a coach, a mentor, a person that we have entrusted our students to, student athletes, who's fighting for safety in handcuffs is ridiculous.
Okay, so the game took place at Morehouse, right?
Yeah, Morehouse College.
Okay, so this officer, was he Atlanta Police Department? Was he Morehouse Police? Was he a hired security guard? Who is he?
It's early on in the investigation. We have not been able to establish his employer. We do know that we see in the video, we see Morehouse badges on some of the officers, but we have not been able to actually identify his employee. But nevertheless, regardless of his employer status, he was acting on behalf of Morehouse, either contract, part-time, or full-time. Nevertheless, his job was to maintain the safety and security of that collegiate event, and he failed to do so. He actually added chaos and confusion. It's a video that's after the fact, Roland, where the coach is trying to get his players in the locker room while he was in handcuffs, begging them, to go to the locker room, and where the football players or a similar student, a body it seemed like they're being aggressive towards parents or other coaching staff. So it was complete lack of control on behalf of these officers. And unfortunately, it binds Morehouse there. I don't believe for 1 second that Morehouse institution as a whole believe or support what happened. But unfortunately, in this situation, you kind of got to wear the shoe.
The Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference released this statement. They said, following a comprehensive review of all available video, reports, and on-site observations, SIAC Commissioner Anthony Holloman has concluded his investigation into the unfortunate incident that involved Tuskegee University head men's basketball coach Benji Taylor and a member of the Morehouse College security staff at the conclusion of the men's basketball game this past Saturday. In accordance with SIAC policy, the conference determined that Morehouse College did not satisfy the required security standards for a host institution, specifically as it relates to crowd control and ensuring the safe entry and exit of visiting teams and game participants. As a result, the SIAC has imposed a fine on Morehouse College of an undisclosed amount and will require corrective measures to ensure full compliance with conference security policies moving forward. The SIAC holds its member institutions to the highest standards of sportsmanship, professionalism, and institutional accountability, said Holloman. Our historic institutions are expected to provide competitive environments that prioritize the safety, dignity, and mutual respect of student athletes, coaches, officials, and fans. The conference remains committed to upholding these expectations and to ensuring that all SIAC contests are conducted in a manner consistent with our shared values. Now, that's from the conference right there, Harry. And so what's the next steps for you? And it's not, first of all, let's just be clear. It's not just you. Benji Taylor has hired you, Gerald Griggs, and Gregory Williams. So what's next?
To piggyback off what the conference put out, Roland, we have to ensure that our colleges, historical Black colleges and universities, are treated with the same dignity and respect, and people who attend those events feel safe and secure. I don't think this would have happened at Cameron Indoor Stadium or any place else, particularly. And I want to make sure that you can't treat a collegiate event as though this is some type of rec league game. You have people there in place to ensure safety, and it was not adhered to. So I want to make sure that this is a message is sent to ensure the safety of students, first and foremost, paramount, student athletes, coaches, fans alike. no matter the venue or setting that you're in. You know, at the end of the day, this is student athletes. It's entertainment. They playing ball, but ultimately it's entertainment. You know, as they matriculate themselves through the university and school to get an education. But we need to ensure safety. And our stance is simple. You know, we want to make sure that Morehouse, you know, take a position, and all institutions take a position, take this as a learned moment, and make sure it doesn't happen again. Obviously, Coach Taylor has some personal damages and issues that he have to deal with, physical, emotionally, psychological. You know, because this never happened before. This could have adverse effect on his career moving forward, because he's forever going to be known as a coach who was arrested on the floor and paraded before his team and a whole gymnasium. That never happened before. So we have to deal with that issues. Obviously, hire our services to help resolve that issue. But nevertheless, the overarching thing that we want to get done is make sure that our players, coaches, and our HBCUs are treated fair and equally like anybody else. And that's what we plan on.
Well, the officer claimed that Taylor was very aggressive and the aggressor. Well, guys, roll a video. Anybody who watches this video, and I played it back, and I was like, I mean, you can tell the officer had attitude. Guys, roll a video. You can tell the officer had this little attitude, and you see him, you know, you see him pointing, you see the officer. Oh, no, roll it. Guys, you're late with the video. Just roll it back. Roll it back. Because I need people to see, okay, now what you're going to see right here. And this was, so you see him motioning, and he's pointing out, and all of a sudden you can tell the officer sort of is like, wait a minute, hold up. Like, and so you see that. Now, this is the thing, Harry, and listen, we've had you on so many times with many of these police cases, shootings that are taking place. And we say this consistently, that the role of law enforcement, whether you are, guys, you can come back to us, the role of law enforcement, whether you are a police officer, whether you are a deputy sheriff, whether you are campus security, your job is to de-escalate.
Right.
At no time do you see this security officer going, Coach, take it easy, calm down. No, the body language you see is, you talking to me? So we all know, and all of a sudden, boom, his immediate reaction is grab the cuffs. So how I first think is he the only officer in the building? Were there any other officers on the scene? Is he the officer in charge? And so that your first reaction should not be slapping cuffs on. He didn't attack him. He didn't brush up against him, didn't hit him. So putting him in cuffs, that's a whole lot.
Yeah, we talk about this de-escalation a lot, how a lot of these things happen and start, from something as simple as detaining a person as the coach was detained to end up killing a person. The de-escalation tactics was clearly not adhered here. And let me be very clear. Even if the coach was upset and using profanity or something, and he was not, he has a First Amendment right protection to do that. That's a First Amendment right protection. And the temperament these officers have to understand that just because a person says something to you that you don't like, they're not threatening or aggressive in nature, they're threatening your person or anybody else, then you cannot resort to a flexing of an ego trip to put them in handcuffs. This could have turned out very bad. His players could have been upset and brought to some type of riot and disagreement and it could have got real physical. But the physicality, if it would have happened, it spawned from an officer not trained or ill or just have a ego that should not be part of a situation in any environment. I say this, Roland. If he's willing to do this to the head coach of Tuskegee University, I can imagine what he's willing to do to the students at Morehouse College.
Indeed. All right, Harry Daniels, keep us abreast of what happens next in this case.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Roland. Have a good day.
All right, Joe, you're an attorney. Coach gonna get paid?
In a word, yes. I think what's really important here, and the point was made, is he going to live? Is he going to be okay? Yeah. Was there broken legs, broken arms? Did somebody die? No. However, this is the beginning of creating tensions that lead to misunderstandings and there's nothing worse than misunderstandings and somebody involved got a gun. There's nothing worse than that. So this is one of those opportunities where you nip something in the bud. And that being said, there is, as was said, a very profound effect. I am certain, I'll give you 10 to 1, that coach has done motivational speeches with either his players and with the larger community about staying out of trouble, not getting in trouble, respecting the police, etc. And then this guy is trying to have a conversation with the police and say, yeah, I think that this is a problem and you should have done better with this. And they put handcuffs on him. So that's why this is so unfortunate. And that's why ultimately, in the worst case, it's even dangerous, because the police have to make deposits of goodwill that can be withdrawn in difficult times. And the problem here is that this undoes a deposit. This is not a good deposit. This is something that's going to make somebody less trustworthy of the police. And when people's personalities get in the way, where now this police officer can't resist and has to slap cuffs on a coach that looks like that's older, probably more mature. If I knew as a police officer that I wasn't in danger, I would have given that brother some deference because he's older, assuming he's older, and say, hey, listen, you can't talk like this. If you really feel that way, say so, but don't plant a seed that's going to end up being a rotten harvest.
Absolutely. Winconi?
Yeah, I agree with what was said. I feel so deeply for Black men that have to deal with this across America. And it's sad to see this happen by the hands of another Black man. But I think what's even scarier, like the previous panelist mentioned, is that this is the beginning of kind of the seeds of discord that this authoritarian and totalitarian government is sowing. The messaging is clear. Law enforcement officers can do whatever they need to do with absolute force, with absolute impunity, and won't face any consequences. And I think that's what we're seeing here is kind of the overflow of that in these types of situations. Like you said, there wasn't much of a conversation had before he whipped the cuffs out. And thank God we're in an age of technology now that people can document these things that are happening. To me, it's really similar to what we're seeing all across the nation. We're seeing an over excessive force of law enforcement agents, right? And so I think that this really should be a signaler to the American people about the state of terror and tyranny that we're really living in. And this is none other at the behest than Donald Trump. This all flows from the top up. The fish drops from the head down, right? So what you might be seeing that's happening at a Morehouse Tuskegee game, you might ask yourself, how does this have to do with Donald Trump? It has everything to do with Donald Trump, because what we're seeing is law enforcement agents be comfortable with using force with no impunity.
Mustafa, I always say this here. You got crazy cops. You give folk a badge and a gun, they lose their mind.
That's true. And that's why we need to have, before people are hired, there needs to be a better analysis of who they are, both psychologically, physically, and a number of other things that we've talked about on the show. Here's the other thing. I've spent a lot of time at the AU Center, and I know at Morehouse, excellence is something that is not only preached, but is expected. Right? It's expected of the young men who go to school there. It's expected of the staff who are teaching our next generation of leaders. And there should be excellence also expected of the individuals who are carrying handcuffs, carrying a badge, carrying a gun, especially because of all the things that come out of that. So when we talk about Black excellence, we've got to make sure in totality that everyone who is a part of our community, everyone who has a role that they're playing with our young people, that they are living up to that. And if you are not living up to that, then you probably need to find something else to do.
All right, folks, hold tight 1 second. We come back, we'll talk with former Congressman Colin Allred. A little dust up with the campaign. Texas State Representative James Talarico is running for United States Senate. We'll talk to him next about it and also share with you response from the Talarico campaign. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
They said the quiet part out loud. Black votes are a threat, so they erased them. After the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act in 2013, Republican legislatures moved fast. New voter ID laws, polling place shutdowns, purges of black voters from the rolls. Trump's Justice Department didn't stop it, they joined in. In 2018, his DOJ backed Ohio's voter purge system, a scheme that disproportionately erased black voters. Their goal, erase black votes and political power. Yeah, that happened. These are the kinds of stories that we cover every day on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Subscribe on YouTube and download the Black Star Network app. Support fact-based independent journalism that centers African Americans and the issues that matter to our community.
Hey everybody, I'm T.D. Jakes and I want to encourage you to watch Roland Martin Unfiltered. It'll blow your mind.
All right, folks, a month away from the race in Texas for the the primary for the United States Senate, who represent Democrats and Republicans in November. On the Republican side, you've got incumbent Senator John Cornyn, running against Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton and Congressman Wesley Hunt. On the Democratic side, you got Texas State Representative James Talarico running against Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. Well, boy, things got a little funky a couple of days ago when a sister went on first of all, when someone went on social media claiming that Talarico, in a private conversation, called former Congressman Colin Allred, who ran last year for the United States Senate against Ted Cruz, a mediocre black man. That got social media abuzz, and then Colin Allred dropped this video on social media.
Morning, everybody. It's cold out here, and I got some steam coming off my head because I'm, just finished my workout. Got some steam coming out of my ears too. I understand that James Talarico had the temerity and the audacity to say to a black woman that he had signed up to run against a mediocre black man, meaning me, not a formidable, intelligent black woman, meaning Jasmine Crockett. Let me just break this down into a few segments here. First of all, let me just give you some free advice, James. If you want to compliment black women, just do it. Just do it. Don't do it while also tearing down a black man, okay? We've seen that play before. We're sick and tired of it. We're tired of folks using praise for black women to mask criticism for black men. That's not good for our community. It's not good. It doesn't work, and we know what you're doing, okay? So if next time you want to praise a black woman, just do that. Leave black men out of it. Just leave a lot of things out of it. Second of all, did you ever have a coach or somebody, a leader in your life tell you that when you make an accusation, you often have a bit of confession in it? Maybe you use the word mediocre because there was something creeping into your mind about yourself. Because I know you're not talking about somebody who's been better at 3 things than you've ever been at 1. You are not saving religion for the Democratic Party or the left. We already had Senator Reverend Dr. Raphael Warnock for that. We don't need you. You're not saying anything unique. You're just saying it looking like you do. Okay? And third of all, let me just say to all the young black men out there, all the young men who come from tough background, struggle growing up, who maybe think that someday you want to put yourself forward as a leader in your community. It's going to have haters like this are going to show up, okay? And you're going to feel like you have to be twice as good and jump twice as high and talk twice as well, but you don't have to. You can walk out there with your shoulders back and your head held up high, knowing who you are and the value that you bring, and understanding that this comes with the territory and that there's going to be folks like this. And when we see them, we should say thank you. Thank you for taking off the mask. Thank you for telling us who you really are and what you really think. And goodbye, okay? Because we're on our way, and we don't need you to come with us, and we don't need your help to get there. So with that being said, go vote for Jasmine Crockett. This man should not be our nominee for the United States Senate. I wasn't going to get involved in this race, but listen, don't come for me unless I send for you. Okay, James? And keep my name out of your mouth while you're at it.
And again, it was a podcaster who said that Talarico told her this in a private conversation. This is a statement released by the Talarico campaign. This is a mischaracterization of a private conversation. In my praise of Congresswoman Crockett, I described Congressman Allred's method of campaigning as mediocre. But his life and service are not. I would never attack him on the basis of race. As a black man in America, Congressman Allred has had to work twice as hard to get where he is. I understand how my critique of the congressman's campaign could be interpreted given this country's painful legacy of racism, and I care deeply about the impact my words have on others. I've always said that despite our disagreements, I deeply respect Congressman Allred. We are all on the same team. All right, Congressman Allred joins us right now. And first of all, he's a former congressman who's now running to get back to Congress, and so that's happening as we speak as well. So he's also on the ballot come March 3rd. Congressman, can I ask a question? First of all, when all this happened, did Talarico reach out to you, call you before or after you released your video?
Hey, Roland, good to see you. No, he did not. And I think that was one thing I was waiting to hear when all this was going around was a denial, but also, maybe an explanation. I have not gotten anything along those lines.
So very interesting watching a lot of the social media discourse, because even before this, you've had a lot of white progressives who've been very critical of Crockett, saying she shouldn't have run, that she's stopping Texas from having the best shot at winning this seat. And I've seen all sorts of stuff, and I've been like, first of all, and I've been blasting folks saying, first of all, most of y'all people ain't even from Texas. Y'all know jack about the state. Right. You know how many counties in the state. You know nothing about the last Democrat to win. Also, you know nothing about the changing demographics. So really, shut the hell up. But the reality is, race has been back and forth in this whole deal, and now you have this here. And so, what do you make of that statement where he admits using the word mediocre, but that was describing your campaign and not you personally?
Well, listen, I believe the young woman who was part of the conversation, she was a supporter of his. She had nothing to gain and everything to lose. What was shocking to her would not have been criticism of my campaign. She was not a supporter of mine. She supported him against me. What was shocking to her was the formulation of calling me a mediocre black man. That's what upset her. And I believe her, and she had contemporaneous reports. And I think that it's important that when language like that is used, that it's called out, that we make sure that there's accountability, that I'm not just going to sit there and allow people to not only impugn me. It's fine if you want to criticize me, but when you use a mediocre black man, now you're making this even more weighty in terms of what you're saying. And I think that there's a lot of young people who are watching this, and I meant what I said in the video, who maybe someday see themselves as wanting to run for office, maybe see themselves as wanting to be a leader in some capacity, and may feel like that even if they've done a huge number of things and had an incredibly successful career, that they'll just be diminished and dismissed in this way. And I don't think that's acceptable.
You said in the video that you had no intentions of endorsing anybody in this campaign, but after this, you absolutely did. And so what was that process for you?
Well, listen, I'm moving on, right, Roland? I got my own race, and I was going to, try and support whoever was the nominee coming out of it. And, I'm friends with Jasmine. That's no secret. I've defended her during this process, because I think that just like you, I've been incredibly frustrated by the coverage of her by people in coastal states having these incredibly strong opinions of what's going to work in Texas, not knowing anything about what our actual struggle is when it comes to elections, which is oftentimes, yes, running against Republicans, but also running against cynicism and a deep feeling of despair that nothing is going to change, particularly in our minority communities. And knowing, as I do, because I go and talk to ordinary people, and hearing from them how they're happy to see me, they appreciate me and my service, and then they'll also often say, "And I really appreciate that, Jasmine," And so I know that, and I have that on the ground experience that these folks don't have. And so I wasn't planning on engaging in this race actively, but I think that when you are someone who feels comfortable enough saying something like that, then now you've pushed me over the edge.
This obviously, they had a debate with Texas AFL-CIO and pretty much agreed back and forth. And so this really is a contrast in styles. Look, you've run statewide. You ran against Senator Ted Cruz last year. You ran in the primary, and then you ran the general. And so what do you make of the likes of James Carville and these other people who are weighing in who say, oh, no, the only way you can have a candidate win in Texas, they've got to be white, they've got to be a moderate, they've got to appeal to the suburban voters. And I had somebody on social media who did that, and I literally went back and I pulled the data, and I went like way back, and I went back to 1988, and I actually ran down all of the people who ran for United States Senate. This was not the complete list, but when I ran this down, I'm going to go to in a second. I mean, listen, you look at this list, there have been white men who've run, white women who've run, Latino, Latina, African-American. You've had different people, really, the two that got closest, Beto O'Rourke, of course, 2.5% to Cruz. Your race, I believe, was like 9-10 points. So this notion that there is a perfect candidate, be it a black woman or be it a Latino or white, I'm just like, guys, there's no such thing. And so that's what drives me crazy as a registered voter in Texas, these people who have no idea what the hell they're talking about in terms of what it takes to win in Texas. The problem in Texas is that it's 60% minority, yet 60% of those who vote are white. It is an unregistered, unorganized, non-mobilized state.
That's right. And, listen, our issue in Texas, as you said, is that we are disproportionately young in addition to being a majority minority state, right? So it's a dual factor, right? So we know that young people vote at a lower rate oftentimes, and we also have whole communities where we're seeing much lower turnout, and particularly our urban centers, which are our fastest growing places, are increasingly diverse, and increasingly we know that we need to do a much better job of turning folks out in those centers, right? And so there's no exact formula on how to do this, but I wish that people would quit being so certain about what they know that must be, right? Because I certainly know that, particularly in my career as a voting rights lawyer, but also running for office, that we have an enormous infrastructure deficit in our cities when it comes to turning folks out, but also we need the candidates, and we need to make sure we have appeals that can reach into folks who feel like, listen, I don't want to go through all the hoops of jumping through all the hoops of voting in Texas. I've got a lot going on in my life. This is competing with 3 or 4 things that are more important to my daily life, having to take time out to go vote. And so that's why, to me, I think we do have to do both. We do need to try and persuade, some of the folks who are feeling, let down or this is not what they wanted in terms of the Trump administration. But in Texas, our challenge is different than it is in a state that's been organized for decades and it's been a competitive presidential campaign coming through. We've not had that. This is not Ohio or Florida, even states that were recently competitive at the presidential level. We've been completely undeveloped. And so the certainty of it is interesting to me, particularly for people who are not in the state, haven't been to the state, or don't have been here recently. you can have an opinion, but the certainty is something that I find to be kind of interesting.
Well, I believe, again, as somebody born and raised in Texas, still registered to vote in Texas, parents there, brothers and sisters there, is that the issue that I see with Democrats in Texas, if there's a defeatist attitude. To your point, listen, Republicans have controlled the state for 30 years. I get a kick out of when I hear Greg Abbott or Dan Patrick start complaining about what Democrats haven't done in Texas. And I'm like, y'all have run the state. What the hell are you talking about? So you can't blame that one on Democrats. You've run the state. And the other thing is that what Democrats have done is they've focused, obviously, and I get it, on your large counties. Harris, where Houston is, look, Blue County, Dallas, Bexar County, San Antonio, Travis County, Austin. Fort Worth is the last large county that's red out of all the major counties. But the issue in Texas is that Democrats have been getting crushed in West Texas, in East Texas. And frankly, what you've seen is the drift of Latinos moving to the right, especially in South Texas. And so what has to happen, and I remember a conversation in 2012 with then Representative Chris Van Hollen, who ran the DCCC. He's now United States Senator. We were waiting to go on CNN. This was after Obama won in 2012. And I asked him specifically about Georgia and Texas. And he said, oh, red states. I'm like, no, dude, they're not. I said, they simply are unorganized, and you guys haven't invested resources. Well, what happened in 2012? Stacey Abrams, Raphael Warnock, and others, they focused on mobilizing Georgia. That's how Georgia has two Democratic United States senators, and how Biden Harris won the state. That's how you had two folks who ran just statewide on the Utility Commission who also won as well. Well, what Democrats have not done is they've just said, there's no way we can win Texas. And so if you make no effort to register the 2 million Latinos who are eligible but unregistered, if you make no effort where you have African-American voters in Texas, where you have the largest concentration of black voters in any state in the country, but when you have black voters in Texas voting anywhere from 48 to 52% or 54%, really what you got to get black turnout in Texas to be 65, 70, 75% to give yourself a shot. That means investing resources, putting people on the ground who are operating 365, 7 days a week. And frankly, that's not what has happened by the state and national party.
Yeah, and it's expensive, and I get that, right? But I think you're absolutely right. I mean,
it's expensive. It's expensive, but 54 electoral college votes is a big ass haul too.
That's right. I mean, and we got to face it. We're going to add 3 more congressional seats, in the next census, right? So I mean, it's going to keep going like this, and so we have to address this. And I think you look at somewhere like Harris County, which has more people than I think in it and the surrounding area than Arizona does, right? Like there's a scale here that's pretty massive, and as Texans, you and I know that, right? Like we have some of the biggest cities you can possibly have, and they're not compact. They're geographically spread out, and that's a challenge. But that challenge requires a long-term response, but also candidates who believe and invest in it. And so that's why the certainty that people on the outside are projecting onto Texas of what will work here frustrates me because listen, we do need to try and make sure we're appealing to as many people as possible. But your persuadable voter in Texas might be a different persuadable voter than it is somewhere else. And that's what I'm trying to impress upon folks, when they're talking about Jasmine, is that who you think we need to persuade might look different and see politics differently than you do. And so who appeals to them might be different than what you expect. And I'm telling you, and I've seen this, and I know this from my own experience, that she does have an ability to connect with people who've been disconnected from politics. That doesn't mean that she's guaranteed to be successful, but I think to be disrespectful about it is outrageous.
But last point here, and that is, you've gone through the running statewide. Neither one of them have run a statewide race. And so what is your advice to both of them? I know you endorse Crockett, but advice to both of them with 1 month left before Election Day. You're running your congressional race, but they're having to run statewide. What do you say to both of them?
Yeah. Well, I think my experience talking to Texans, there's so many people out there who are wondering, does anybody see me? Does anybody know what I'm going through? Like, I feel like I'm doing everything right. I'm working hard, I'm playing by the rules, and I feel like I can't get ahead. And I've had so many experiences where people come up to me, and within a few minutes of talking, they'll be telling me their life story, oftentimes breaking down in tears. And I think there's a hunger out there for people who will speak directly to this moment that we're in, which is not just, it is economic, of course, but it's also a values-based thing. Do you understand what we are going through? That this has been, especially coming out of COVID, an incredibly difficult time, and that we are afraid that our communities are being terrorized by this administration that we see on TV, these folks who are openly corrupt, and they're doing fine and we can't. And in my race, in my congressional race, I also see that showing up. I'm running against somebody who's one of the top stock traders in the country. I never traded stocks when I was in Congress for 6 years. I think it's immoral and unethical, in my opinion. But it's also something that shows up when I would talk to people in these diners and in restaurants. I'd talk about Donald Trump's corruption. They'd throw that back and say, what about the corruption in Congress? And they're absolutely right. So we need to have some truth telling. We need to try and inspire people about what can change. And I think it has to start with showing that you see and hear and understand what some of our communities who are really going through a sense of almost despair are experiencing, because that's how we'll turn them out to vote, but that's also how we'll shift our policy to be around working people in Texas.
Absolutely. And just real quick, I was just over here playing on the map here. Go to my iPad. Listen, y'all, you want to understand how critical Texas is? If you look at this map, if you give Republicans Nevada, Utah, Arizona, give them Wisconsin, give them North Carolina, South Carolina, give them Georgia, give them Pennsylvania, give them Ohio, guess what? All Democrats got to do is win Minnesota, Michigan, Illinois. You win Texas with the 4 electoral college votes, you get 274. So that's how so bottom line is, Democrats win California is 54, but when you concede Texas and Florida to Republicans, that's 7 electoral college votes right there. And so that's the message that, frankly, I would say to any Democratic leader. If you actually want to win, you got to put the money in there. And we're talking about, and I said it, I've long said that you got to look at putting $100 to $200 million into a state if you want to transform it, because you got to hit all parts of a massive state with 254 counties. And so you got these Democratic billionaires. That's how you actually win. Because what's happening right now, and you know this here, Congressman, Republican billionaires, they own Greg Abbott and Dan Patrick. They own Ken Paxton. They are pushing out millions of dollars to protect their interests, and that's how you win states like that. You don't win it on a hope and a prayer. You win it through investment.
Yeah, you got to have the investment. That's right. And they're, like you said, they're billionaires. They know what the return they're getting on their investment. So,
all right, Congressman Colin Allred, good luck in your race March 3rd. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Roland.
I'm going to my panel here. This it's been very interesting watching when Cooney, I'm going to start with you, this whole back and forth. And I have been saying responding to a lot of different people, to a lot of these white progressives. I've been saying, y'all need to shut the hell up. Because many of them, and I'm talking about, there have been people from Tennessee, California, Michigan. I had some dude from Australia. I'm like, none of y'all don't know a damn thing about Texas. I'm like, so how all of a sudden are y'all Texas political experts and you know how to win the state or what is required to actually win the state? It's some of the dumbest stuff I've ever heard, and it makes no sense. And here's the deal. If you are a Talarico supporter, good. If you are a Crockett supporter, good. But the reality is neither one are guaranteed to just win the state in November.
Absolutely. Absolutely, Roland. And the scary thing about it is we need to ensure one of them does. Like you said, we put that congressional map up there. When we really think about not only the road to 2026, but really the road to 2028, Texas is an integral piece to that puzzle. I think a lot of people are overlooking Texas as just a legacy Republican state. But like you said, Texas is slowly changing. It's not the bastion of Republicanism that it once was. So I think we really have to critically consider this. And to Congressman Allred's points, I think it's really interesting and even rich to hear, James Talarico call someone a mediocre Black man. I think it's when you think of the trope, I wish I had the confidence of a mediocre white man. That's often what I think of when I see a lot of these, white men that really purport themselves as to be tenants and supporters of Black people, but really behind closed doors are no different from some of the people across the aisle from them. And so you really have to pay close attention to that. I think Texans will go out and make the right decision, but I myself was stunned but not surprised by when this came out, because I was one of the folks that were like, Talarico's not that bad. I prefer Crockett. But, after hearing this, it doesn't shock me at all. And I believe what was said. And I too would be like, all right, well, as a Black person, I can't in good conscience vote for any white person that's saying that Colin Allred is a mediocre Black man. By far, he is not.
Several things have been going on. This happened over the weekend, Mustafa. Go to my iPad. Democrat Taylor Remett flipped a Republican state Senate seat. It was a special election, and they're gonna go at it again in November. Now, it's a lot of factors here. You had the Republican was involved in taking over a lot of different school boards. People were pissed off by that. You had Republicans who were running, who ran before the special election. 3 different Republicans, they split the vote. And so there are a number of different factors here, but the reality is this was a district that Trump won by 17 points. They had not had a Democrat representing them in more than 30 years. But this, and then also, this person is a union worker who works for Lockheed Martin. That is a huge issue, Lockheed Martin in that particular district. And this is the point that I am constantly trying to make to people all the time. And this is what I say: if you are a white progressive, if you are a Black Democrat, if you are a Latino Democrat, first of all, shut the hell up. What AOC does in New York, what Clyburn does in South Carolina, what Maxine Waters does in California, what Tammy Baldwin does in Wisconsin means nothing to this particular state. And I've always said, if you're going to run, you have to run according to your state and then according to your congressional district or your state senate or your state rep district. And so what are those particular issues? And so you've got people like Dana Lash who are saying, oh no, here was some other factors, it's not that big of a deal. Republicans are freaking out in Texas by saying we can't dismiss what happened. Anybody who pays attention should understand that when you run, it's local, 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 local. And I think if you're Talarico and Crockett, and if you're talking about the Texas race and you're spending lots of time talking about national, international issues, that to me is a huge mistake. You got to be zeroing in what's happening in Wichita Falls, what's happening in South Padre Island, what's happening in Midland, what's happening in the suburbs of Houston, when you talk about Pearland, other places, and speaking to those issues. And that's what it has to be about. And so, I'm not one of these people like, Mondani is the future of the Democratic Party. Nope. AOC is the future Democratic Party. Nope. That simply is not true. It's, can that person connect with voters in that state in order to get them to the polls?
I mean, you hit it on the head. It is about, do you see me? Do you understand what's going on in my community, what the particular sets of needs are, what I'm worried about, what I'm also happy about, what I think, we should also be doing more investments in. And lots of times, unfortunately, politicians start listening to the wrong folks. And they forget about, everybody who's they're going to meet at the supermarket or after church or the mosque or the synagogue, wherever you might go, and being able to actually hear about what folks are needing. And that's the trick, really, when you actually get out of your own way and listen to folks. Spend some time on people's back porches. Drink some lemonade or some sweet tea with them and hear what's going on. Go to whatever the local community meeting is and spend time there. But it has to be local. It has to be home focused. And when you don't do that, often you're not successful because folks don't feel that you're authentic, because they don't feel like you see them, they don't feel like you hear them, and they don't feel like you truly care about what's going on.
Joe, when Beto O'Rourke lost to Governor Greg Abbott in the gubernatorial race, 75% of voters 30 and under did not vote. Again, if you're a Democrat in Texas, you cannot win with 75% of young people don't vote. You cannot win if you're not driving up margins among African Americans and Latinos. Again, 60% of Texas is minority. 60% of the people who vote in Texas are white. That is how the state is red.
Yeah, and Texas is this sleeping giant that is yet to be awakened and can be awakened. Beto O'Rourke reminded us of something in terms of what he did, talking about, what getting a sense for what's actually possible. If those kids voted, he could have won. Okay? And so therefore the numbers are there. The people are there. Okay? Now, let's keep it real. Assuming that Black folks come out and vote a lot, I'd like to think that they do with not only what's at stake, but with Jasmine Crockett in the race. I think Talarico's finished. And I was just like our other panelists here. I thought he was kind of okay too. I wouldn't have supported him over Crockett, but I thought he's okay too. And so now, here we are having these same conversations. But he's not going to drive Black voter excitement necessarily. We'll see. But my sense is that this would be a big problem that way. But in any event, to be reminded, Texas is this sleeping giant with all of these voters that aren't voting, and that this thing could be flipped. Because to your point, once Texas gets there, I believe Texas will get there one day. Once Texas gets there, right, and they're voting Democrat, it's over with. It's over with. Electoral college even, this undemocratic system we have, y'all still losing every time, okay? And so we have to pay attention to it, make sure people get out and vote. The game is the same. Doesn't matter what you think if you're not voting on it.
Yep, simple as that. Folks, quick break. We come back. Renee Good, not the only person, and Renee Good, Alex Pretty, not the only person shot by someone with ICE. Black man in Los Angeles, Keith Porter, was also shot and killed. His family still demanding answers. We'll talk to their attorney next, right here. Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network.
On a next, A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, a relationship that we have to have. We're often afraid of it and don't like to talk about it. That's right, we're talking about our relationship with money. And here's the thing, our relationship with money oftentimes determines whether we have it or not. Balancing your relationship with your pocketbook, that's next on A Balanced Life with me, Dr. Jackie, here at Black Star Network.
I'm Mark Morehouse, President and CEO of the National Urban League, and I'm watching the Black Star Network.
Folks, we cover the story of Keith Porter, a Black man who was shot and killed by an off-duty ICE agent late last year. Not much attention has been focused on his story, but the reality is we focused that. And the family, they are still demanding answers as to what took place. They held a rally today in Los Angeles to raise attention to what took place on New Year's Eve. Brian Palacios fatally shot Porter, again, following celebratory gunfire outside his L.A. apartment. Reports say there's no evidence that Porter fired toward the agent and questioned whether Palacios was justified in responding before police arrived. Now, DHS claims he acted in self-defense since the shooting against Palacios and claims of abuse and racist behavior have resurfaced. LAPD is investigating, but the family says the department's investigation isn't sufficient. Ben Crump joins us right now. He is an attorney for the family. Ben, glad to have you back on Roland Martin Unfiltered. It was really only after Renee Good's shooting that some national outlets began to even say the name Keith Porter. We were talking about it soon thereafter. This deserves as much attention as Renee Good and Alex Pretty.
Absolutely, Roland Martin. And the reality is that
different year, same struggle. The fact that Keith Porter Jr. was shot by an off-duty ICE agent who never should have been hired in the first place, now that we're finding out about his background. Attorney Jamal Tucson, the attorney for the family, asked me if I would help raise awareness and attention, and because people aren't saying his name enough. I mean, it's egregious, the fact that the neighbors, the witnesses, say they heard 3 shots, and the autopsy reveals that Keith Porter Jr. has 3 shots in his body. He never fired at this officer. The neighbors said that he said he was gonna fire a shot for the New Year's like everybody else was doing. And this guy, his first statement, Roland, before they crafted this, what we believe is a false narrative, he said he heard a shot, he heard shots in the air. He came out, he saw Keith Porter, and he shot him to eliminate whoever had a gun. And you're like, whoa, you don't have that right to do that. That's his narrative. But now DHS got in and they try to make this guy like a hero, talking about he took down an active shooting situation. And the family and the neighbors are dumbfounded because they're saying Keith Porter would not have been having an active shooting situation. He told his neighbors what he was going to do beforehand. And so this guy decided, Roland Martin, that he was going to be the judge, the jury, and the executioner. And DHS and the Department of Justice is trying to accept this narrative like it's the gospel when it has been contradicted by people who lived in that apartment complex.
I'm one who never has understood the firing of guns on New Year's Eve, because the bullet goes up, it's going to come down. But let's just be honest. That happens all over the country, in cities, rural America. And I would assume Keith Porter wasn't the only one firing his gun into the air that night celebrating New Year's. So why did this guy target just Porter?
Well, if you believe the allegations, this guy had engaged in racial activities before. And we now know domestic violence issues. The girlfriend talked about him saying racial epithets in those situations. And, you know, we don't believe he would have been able to get a gun permit, much less be a police officer, but ICE hired him. And so now he's cloaked with this, I guess, position of authority as an ICE agent, and he feels he can engage his will. And let's be clear, Roland, the actions of these ICE officials are outright assault on all of our constitutional rights. I mean, the First Amendment right against freedom to assemble and freedom of speech, Second Amendment right to bear arms, Fourth Amendment rights against unlawful searches and seizures, a Fifth Amendment right to be able to have due process of the law, not for somebody to be the judge, jury, and executioner. The Sixth Amendment right to counsel. I mean, they're taking people and not even allowing them to have a lawyer. They're violating the Fourth Amendment, Roland, by kicking in their front doors without having no warrants. I mean, busting their car windows. And I mean, it's just outrageous. Our Eighth Amendment right against cruel and unusual punishment, but yet we see numbers of people are dying in these ICE detention facilities in inhumane conditions. So everything they're doing is just a direct affront to everything we supposed to hold dear in America and our Constitution.
So who is leading the investigation of this case? Is it LAPD? Is it the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department? What role is DHS playing?
Yeah, Roland, that's what I came to bring attention to. The fact that the civil rights community in Los Angeles, they are screaming from the top of their lungs that LAPD is in lockstep with ICE. The police chief, who was the former sheriff, Madonna, even though they passed a state law and Los Angeles County ordinance that ICE could no longer wear face masks, he came out and said he was not going to enforce that law, that he disagreed. And so now you have him supposedly leading the investigation into the killing of Keith Porter Jr. So we called today for California Attorney General Rob Bonta to initiate an independent, transparent investigation into this killing. And we didn't say we come asking for something special, Roland Martin. We said based on California law, that when Kamala Harris was Attorney General, they passed a law when it is a police-involved shooting of an unarmed citizen, then the Attorney General would do an investigation because they believe, his family believes, that LAPD is simply going to whitewash this investigation, and they don't trust the Department of Justice because it was the Department of Justice that came out talking about this guy was a hero after he made 2 previous statements that did not involve anything about Keith shooting at him. But by the time they got around to it, they said it was an active shooting situation and that the officer felt his life was in danger. And so we are not going to let them sweep this under the rug because that seems to be the case, Roland Martin, with all these ICE-involved shootings. They want to come with the conclusion and say, oh, there's nothing to see here, no need to investigate. Well, in the killing of Keith Porter, that's a non-starter for us.
All right, then. Well, Ben, keep us abreast. This is an important story and one that deserves all of our attention.
Thank you, Roland Martin, always, brother.
I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. All right, folks, go to a quick break. When we come back, Shabuzi made some interesting comments about immigrants building America. Look, folks fired back. He's now offering a different take. We'll share that with you next. Also, our Shout Black Star Network segment is coming up. Can't wait for that as well, especially all of you who are frequent travelers. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered right here on the Black Star Network.
If in this country right now, you have people get up in the morning and the only thing they can think about is how many people they can hurt, and they got the power, that's the time for mourning.
For better or worse, what makes America special, it's that legal system that's supposed to protect minorities from the tyranny of the majority.
We are at a point of a moral emergency. We must raise a voice of outrage. We must raise a voice of compassion. And we must raise a voice of unity.
We are not in a crisis of party versus party. We are in a crisis of civilization, a human rights crisis, and a crisis of democracy itself. And guess what? You've been chosen to make sure that those that would destroy, those that would hate, don't have the final say, and they don't ultimately win.
How you doing? I'm Mark Curry, and you're watching the Black Star Network. That's why I got these glasses on, because that black star is bright.
All right, folks, big night for lots of artists on Sunday at the Grammys, including Shabuzi. He became the first black man to win Best Country Duo Group Performance at the Grammy. And this is what he had to say in winning the award. This is sort of got some folks a little upset and not at all happy with what he had to say. And so let me cue this up for you. All right, let's see here. All right, do we have it ready? Let's see. We're almost there. We're almost there. Okay. Come on, iPad. iPad not acting right. Give me 1 second. All right, here we go. Hopefully this works. If not, I gotta go hardline. All right. All right, there we go. There we go. Okay. Here is Shabuzi at the Grammys.
Immigrants built this country, literally. So this is for them, for all children of immigrants. This is also for those who came to this country in search of better opportunity to be a part of a nation that promised freedom for all and equal opportunity to everyone willing to work for it. Thank you for bringing your culture, your music, your stories, and your traditions here. You give America color. I love y'all so much. Thank you.
All right, so that was his statement there. Well, that didn't sit well with a lot of folks on social media with what he had to say, and it stirred up a lot of folk in this space. And so Shabuzi, he heard y'all. He heard what y'all had to say, and he posted this on social media. First and foremost, I want to express my deep gratitude to everyone who has supported and celebrated my journey as an artist. I also want to acknowledge the conversation surrounding my acceptance speech. To be clear, I know and believe that we, Black people, have also built this country. My words were never intended to dismiss that truth. I am both a Black man and the son of Nigerian immigrants, and in the overwhelming moment of winning my first Grammy, my focus was on honoring the sacrifices my parents made by coming to this country to give me and my siblings opportunities they never had. At the same time, winning this award on the first day of Black History Month and becoming the first Black man to win Best Country Duo is Black history. It stands on the foundation laid by generations of Black people who fought, sacrificed, and succeeded long before me. This moment belongs to all of us. My entire career has been rooted in lifting people up, honoring where we come from, and expanding what's possible. I am proud to be part of this legacy, and I intend to continue doing that work for the rest of my life. With love, Shabuzi. All right, let's get into it. So, Mustafa, I'll start with you. What do you make of this? This is something that has happened a lot when folks say that. Black folks like, hold up, when you talk about who built this country, not forgetting what happened, 250 plus years of American shadow slavery. Go ahead, what are your thoughts?
No, I mean, I think you laid it out right there. You know, for those of us whose roots run through this country for hundreds and hundreds of years, we understand the sacrifice that we gave, often unwillingly, to actually build this country. We understand our tears, our breath, our bones, our blood that has gone into this. So when you have folks who have recently come to the country, no one wants to take away from the contributions that immigrants have made to the country, but we've got to also talk about the foundation of the individuals who actually helped to build this country. And when you don't do that, there is a disrespect that is there. And that's why, many of folks who are, whether it's FBA or other, folks who want to make sure that folks are very clear about our contribution and not allowing it to be whitewashed, and making sure that folks understand everything that has been poured into this nation. And when others don't do that, who maybe are recent, then, it's not an uncomfortable situation. It is an untruthful situation. And we've just got to make sure that we continue to put the spotlight on everything that we have done.
Bernice King was one of those folks, Win Cooney. Give me 1 second. I want to, don't go to it yet. I want to actually increase the size of this. She weighed in on this, and this was one of the items that surfaced that people were commenting on, which I think led Shabuzi to release that statement. So Bernice King, of course, the daughter of Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., released this a day ago. It's Black History Month, and I have to ask, are people including enslaved Africans, descendants of those enslaved, and Black people whose unjust low-wage labor sustained the economy in the 1800s and 1900s as immigrants when they say immigrants built this country? Because chattel slavery was for the express purpose of building empire. But our ancestors weren't folks who came here seeking a better life. They arrived in chains, were bred like cattle, and severely violated sexually and otherwise. Their trauma shouldn't be diminished or forgotten, even in efforts toward freedom from ISIS inhumane, violent tactics. We can only get to justice for all when truth is taught, embraced, and spoken.
Yeah, I like Dr. King's statement because I think she honors what Shabuzi's intention was, which, if we look at the Grammys holistically, everybody was wearing those ice out pins, right? There was a heavy focus on immigrant and immigrant communities. So I can understand him getting overwhelmed and caught up in the moment, but I do think it's very, very important to understand that not everyone came to this country freely and willingly, right? It's important to honor the fact that some of the persons that built this country were kidnapped persons, right? From the same country that Shabuzi's family was from, but nonetheless kidnapped and didn't have a choice on whether they decided to cross the transatlantic or not. So I think it's important that we honor and revere that. But what I think it leads into a greater conversation, Roland, is there's often this friction between Africans, Caribbeans, and African Americans. And I think oftentimes we're just not hearing each other. And as the daughter of Haitian immigrants, I can understand the challenges with that, right? The daughter of Haitian immigrants, but then went to Howard University. And I often feel that I'm living in this dichotomy, right, between being Black American and being Haitian American. And sometimes it is challenging to marry those identities, right? But I think the best way to do that and moving forward is A, making sure that we're hearing each other, but B, making sure that we are honoring and reverencing each other's histories. And I think it starts, Roland, with making sure we know each other's histories, right? There's often times where I'm having conversations with my African American friends. They have no idea about Haiti or its contributions to freedom at all. And then sometimes I'm having conversations with my African American friends, and they're teaching me about things that I didn't know that happened here in the civil rights era. Howard University was actually my first time where I got to learn a lot of these concepts, both about Haiti and African Americans in a shared context. And so I think it's really important that we extend grace to people who may not have that language and learning, but we have to continue to teach one another.
It is, I think, critically important that education on these matters be understood. Listen, one of the things that I've always said is that if you are an African immigrant or you are a Black immigrant coming to this country, whether it is an African country, whether it is Jamaica, the Bahamas, if it's St. Kitts, if it's Bermuda, does not matter, that you need to understand the history of people of African descent in the United States. It's no different that if I, as an African American, went to Bermuda, went to the Bahamas, went to other countries where there are Black people, then I need to have an understanding of the history of people in those countries. The reality is, and I went to the square in Jamaica, where they had the huge posters. And when I was there last time, they had the history there in the airport. And I took different photos showing you the freedom fighters of Jamaica, the people who actually fought slavery in Jamaica. And so what we have to recognize is that slavery just was not fought in the United States. Haiti was a battle where they got their independence. When you talk about other slave rebellions, what took place in Haiti inspired what took place in the United States when it came to the slave rebellion. But the other thing is this here, and this is what's also, I think, important, not just for a Shabuzi, not just for Black immigrants, but also for a lot of African Americans. We also have to, and I think Bernice King did a great job with this, to get people to understand that you had nearly 250 years of chattel slavery. But then you had Reconstruction. Then you had 92 years of Jim Crow. And then you had post-Jim Crow. So what often happens is we isolate slavery as if the next 100 years didn't exist. You go from, listen, you had the 1875 Civil Rights Act that was declared unconstitutional. There was not another Civil Rights Act passed by Congress until 1957. You can't act like that didn't exist. And so I think one of the mistakes is people say, well, slavery was a long time. Okay, yeah, you're right. But there was some shit that went down after slavery that still was screwed up for Black folks. That, to me, Joe, is a mistake that is constantly made, as if the 100 years after slavery ended, act like it didn't exist. Oh, it did.
Yeah, and you know, our dear brother, and I'm embarrassed his name escapes me, that's down deep in the South and had the book and the movie that Jamie Foxx starred in, talks about this in his book. And he talks about this quite a bit, about how effectively slavery just continued. It changed its face a bit. He talks about this and really breaks this down. And so I think, to your point, not only do we need to understand, if I go to Bermuda, if I go to Haiti, Jamaica, I need to understand, what happened there. And then people coming from other parts of the world, immigrants, et cetera, Black immigrants need to understand what happened here as it pertains to African Americans. But African Americans have to reconnect to what happened to us, to our descendants all that time ago, and how they prayed and struggled their way into a better future for us, even as they said, maybe not for me, but for them. So, and I also think that if we do a better job of that as African Americans today, you walking around and you got an American Express Gold Card, and your situation is great. You could be as progressive as they come and be against ICE and everything, but you got a different reality. And how intentional are we about making sure we're educating, connecting people, connecting our people, our relatives, our friends, to what happened before, so that we can continue to chart a path forward and act with the proper urgency. So we have to really do this on purpose. And maybe this is an opportunity for us to be reminded, brother made a mistake, but he's a performer. So when you perform, there's a lot sitting on you. You got to get your steps right. You got to get your music right. If you talk about immigrants, you got to get that right too, particularly as a brother, for sure. But let's make sure we're getting our own history right too, so that we can embrace our history and continue to move forward the way we need to.
Yeah, trust me, I've had to correct and personally call a number of African American entertainers who did not have their history right. I'll tell you this here. I will. First of all, the book you referred on my iPad, you were talking about Douglas Blackman's book, Slavery by Another Name, The Re-Enslavement of Black Americans from the Civil War to World War II. That's the book I think you were talking about there, Joe. I'll tell you this here. I remember being at the NAACP convention in Houston, and it was the Youth Council Division, and Russell Simmons was addressing them. And he stood up and he said that when he produced, I forgot which one of the movies, it was one of the rap movies, he said that he was the first African American to produce a major Hollywood film. And in the audience was the esteemed Vernon Jarrett. Vernon Jarrett, of course, worked in the Chicago Defender, columnist, first Black columnist for Chicago Sun-Times. And Vernon Jarrett was actually there. Now, Vernon Jarrett wasn't no youth. Vernon was in his 70s, and Vernon stood up and literally gave Russell Simmons a history lesson on blacks in film, going back to Oscar Micheaux and bringing it all the way up, saying, no, you were not the first African American to produce a Hollywood film. And it was quite insightful. And when it was over, Vernon was talking to him, and I went over and I was talking to Russell and Vernon, and I literally said to Russell, this is a brother, you need to get his information, because trust me, this is living history. And by the way, Vernon Jarrett is also the creator, the founder of NAACP Act So competition. And so Vernon was one who did not care about your name or your title or your money. If you got Black history wrong, you were going to be corrected on the spot. So again, so for folk who are sitting here mad at Shabuzi, let me be real clear. I know a whole bunch of Black folk from Alabama, Louisiana, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, who don't know a damn thing about our own history. So some of y'all might want to pump the brakes, because we gave your ass a Black history test. You may not pass. When we come back, our Shop Black Star Network segment. If you love to travel, you're going to love this segment. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to contribute to our fan club, the goal is to get 20,000 people contributing on average $50 each a year. That'll raise $1 million to offset our costs, which are about $195,000 per month. We've launched 2 new shows. We've hired new staff. We've completely done, folks, about a $300,000 to $400,000 audio video upgrade in our studio. So a lot of things have been happening. So your support is critical. for the work that we do. So if you want to give via Cash App, use the Stripe QR code. You see it right here. That's for credit cards as well. Also, if you want a check-in money order, you want to be old school, do so by sending a check-in money order. Make it out to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 20037-0196. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com. Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. I'll be right back.
I'm Brittany Noble, Midwest-born, HBCU educated with experience in newsrooms across the country. Well, I've teamed up with Roland Martin to bring to you The Breakdown. This isn't just news. It's our stories, our voice, our community. Join me for The Breakdown, Monday through Friday at midday, only on the Black Star Network.
Hi, I'm Swing Cash, Basketball Hall of Famer, and you're watching Black Star Network.
All right, folks, if you love to travel, yours truly, Million Miler on United, guess what? You want to travel in style. So, listen, a lot of y'all sitting here running around grabbing Louis Vuitton and all kind of other stuff. What about a black-owned company? Miss Jet Setter offers these quite stylish bags for your go-to essentials, such as toiletries, makeup, TSA-approved bottles, grooming kits, and tech organizers. Tracy McGee, the founder of Miss Jet Setter, joins us from Chicago. Glad to have you here. All right, Tracy, so what happened? Were you looking for some stylish stuff, and you like, man, I am sick and tired of packing these old bland-ass products. What happened?
That's pretty much what happened. But first of all, thank you so much for having me, Roland. I'm Tracy McGee. I'm the founder of Miss Jet Setter. We create stylish and functional travel accessories for women. And really what you said is pretty much how it went. I'd love to travel. I've been traveling for years, but I would always run into the same issues over and over again. Starting with my necklaces, I would, no matter what type of jewelry case I would use, my necklaces would tangle, and then it would take me over an hour to unravel them. And I know so many women that have had the same experience. Then I looked at my makeup and my toiletries, and they were just scattered. They weren't easily accessible, just not very organized. And so I thought there's got to be a travel accessory line for women that allows us to stay organized when we're on the go, but has a stylish feel to it. And so I did some research, and I just didn't see what I was looking for. I'd see a product that was functional and it would help you really stay organized, but it was missing on the stylish component. Or I'd see something that was really cute, but it was missing out on the organizational features. So that's what really led me to launch the Travel Trio, which is a 3-piece set. It includes a toiletry bag that has a detachable pouch, a jewelry case that keeps necklaces from tangling, and a makeup case that includes travel-sized makeup brushes. And I later launched some other products. And then last year, a Metro tote, which is a tote you can take everywhere. And I'd love to kind of walk you and your viewers through some of the features because they all have something special.
So this is a travel jewelry case right here. So y'all see right here. So check this out. So explain to me how you did this here, because you have these snaps right here. You've got this zipper portion right here. This folds over, and then you got all this over here. So this is, we talk about your necklaces. So what, with these snaps, this is how you keep them from being tangled?
Absolutely. Yep. And I've got one here too. I can show you that actually has some necklaces inside. But you can see the necklace clasps keeps your necklaces straight, so you don't have to worry about tangled necklaces.
And also, obviously, you do not want to, let me be real clear, y'all, you do not want to pack your jewelry. And so this is also small enough to you can drop it in your backpack or a handbag and carry it onto the plane.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that you can carry with you anywhere. And I've got some customers that keep it at home, and that's where they store the
Right.
jewelry. So it's got multiple functions.
So how many different colors of your travel jewelry case? So I see this this midnight blue right here, and I'm gonna text in the graduates of this maroon works.
Yeah, we've got garnet. It also comes in rose gold as well as black.
Okay, all right. So let's talk about this. This is a let's see here, a hanging toiletry bag. So let me open this up. So first of all, toiletry bag. Of course, got the handle right here, and so now we look on the inside. So you got the hanging toiletry bag. I can unzip it here. Then I've got a fold-out zip. I got a clear right here. So yeah, pretty cool.
Thank you. And what's also nice about the toiletry bag is that this detachable pouch at the bottom, you can take that with you as you're sightseeing or just running around town. And there are times when if I'm traveling, I don't really want to carry too many purses with me. I'll use it as a clutch when I'm going to dinner too. So again, you have multiple functions with the products.
All right, so here we got the travel makeup case. And so here, of course, I see brushes. You got your little pouches right here. And then you got your large pouch right here. Now, listen, let me be real clear. I don't travel with makeup. Now, you need to understand something. I'm a techie, all right? So I'm sitting here looking at this. I'm like, okay, I can put, let's see, a DJI action camera in here. I can put a go. You got to understand how, first of all, when you said you got travel bags for women, I was like, okay, so, but the reality is, if you a dude, no, if you a dude and there's stuff that you want to carry. Listen, you got guys who wear bracelets and beads and things on those lines, so that can also work here. And so it's not. I don't necessarily see this bag as being feminine at all. So I know you see it's for women, but this can be unisex.
You're right. You're right. And it started out because I was looking for products that could cater to women. But what I did find is that men purchase our products just as much.
Okay.
So whether it's the toiletry bag or the jewelry case, there's like I said, there's so many ways that you can use them. I have people that don't even use the jewelry bag for jewelry. They might use it for other items, like you said, tech and other things. So I think that's the beauty of the line, that it really can cater to so many different travelers.
All right, so we got this. What is this called? This is the Metro Tote. The bag right here. So explain the Metro Tote, because we got the big portion here. Then we got outside little slot right here. We got zipper down. We got stuff down here. We got another zipper down here at the bottom. You got a whole bunch of zippers and pockets and stuff. So explain the Metro Tote.
There's a lot. There's a lot. And again, when I think about traveling, you need places to put your items. And so the side pocket, I'll start there. What's great about this is that you can put your passport in there. You can put your keys in there. It just makes it easily accessible to quickly get access to your items. There's that front pocket that you mentioned. The back pocket, which I love, it's a functional pocket. But then if you have a suitcase and you don't want to carry your bag, you unzip that bottom zipper and it slides over the suitcase. So this is a hideaway trolley sleeve. So that has multiple functions. The other part that I really love about the bag is that it may be hard to see it from your view, but there's a detachable strap that you can use it for a crossbody or a side on the side, but it also converts to a backpack. So
okay, see, I don't think I have. Now I have. Hold up, is that on the inside?
It's in there. Yeah, it's in the bottom.
All right, here we go. All right, so let me.
Yep, that's strapped.
Let me go ahead and pull that out, and so we got the hooks here and here. So okay.
On the bottom.
All
and then
right.
you just slide it through those little openings up at the top. Kind of weave it through.
Oh wait. Oh, you got it. You can just sit here and just pop that on. And so you're saying if you want to just let's see here. So you want to extend that, and you can just sort of wear it like that.
Exactly. You could do it that way too. Absolutely.
Okay. Questions from the panel. Let's see here. Let's see, Mustafa, Joe, Wincuni, who probably travels the most? Mustafa, you probably got more miles than Joe and Wincuni, so I'm gonna let you go first.
Yeah, I'm a little less than 1,000,000 miles, so you hit that one on the head. Well, sister, congratulations on everything that you got going on. I'm curious, how do you choose the various materials? Because I've seen a lot of different designs there, and I'm curious, do you reach out to the customers and ask them what they're looking for, or how do you make those decisions?
So a variety of ways. So when I first started out, I would do surveys, quite frankly, just to get an idea of what customers wanted. And there were times when I would stand outside of a store and I'd have a paper copy of the survey and just ask questions, and I'd have samples to show them and just to see what the response would be. So I generally like to get customer feedback to determine what products might be useful. I also do a lot of competitive research. So I'll go to stores and I'll just see what products are on the shelves and get a sense for what products are selling. So that also gives me a lot of insights to determine what type of products and the type of material that I should use to get the products made.
Wincuni.
Thank you so much, Tracy, for sharing this with us. So I gotta ask Ms. Jetsetter, do you all ship internationally?
That's a great question. We are still just shipping through the US. That is a goal of ours to eventually get into the international market. So as we continue to grow and scale, that is definitely on our bucket list.
Joe.
So I had to say, first of all, I'm triggered here because my daughter is the one that has designated me as the person that I end up taking two paper clips, undoing them, and working with her jewelry when she brings it home jumbled. So I'm multitasking and texting her this jewelry organizer right now, okay? So here's my question.
Sure.
No, really. Tell me what the next frontier is. I'm looking at the tote, the hanging toiletry bag. This is wonderful. Congratulations. I think it's great. And obviously you are hitting a place in the marketplace where you actually literally saw a need and filled it because you didn't see what you were looking for. Are there some other things out there that you think Ms. Jetsetter might be able to get into that we are still looking for and that you don't see yet?
I do. I mean, travel has really changed over the last several years. People are traveling like never before, whether it's business and leisure travel. You have the nomad travelers, and you have girlfriend trips, and all kinds of different ways that people are traveling now. And so I definitely see that there's so much more that the brand can do. Ultimately, I'd love for us to evolve to become a travel lifestyle brand, where we offer products for every traveler and not just for women specifically. But my next goal would be to get into luggage. That's a huge category that I think we can, do something a little different than what's currently available in the market. Travel gear is another category that I think we can make a mark. But those are things that take time and resources. So we're trying to take baby steps as we go. But I can see that the sky is limitless for Miss Jetsetter.
All right, folks, listen, if y'all want to check the products out, do me a favor, go to shopblackstarnetwork.com. So if you go to shopblackstarnetwork.com, you'll see the various products from Miss Jetsetter right there on the page. Don't forget, when you support buying her products, you also support the Black Star Network as well. And so all of these products that you see, just like Tracy's company, they're all Black-owned companies. And so a lot of products that she has there. And so check it all out. And so when we're seeing y'all going through the airports, be sure to, rock a Black-owned travel care company. Tracy, we appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thanks so much for having me, Roland.
All right. Well, thank you so very much. All right, folks, that is it for us. Let me thank Mustafa, Wincuni, and Joe for being on today's show. I certainly appreciate y'all being on today's panel. Thank you so very much. Folks, don't forget, support the work that we do. We're going to do this here, so I'm just going to walk on over here. So we're just going to go ahead and add this to our list of products. So, we got all this stuff over here. And so if I walk over here, these are all our products that we have in our Shop Black Star Network marketplace. And so you see them all here. And so I'm going to go ahead and add these here. I think we're going to have to get us like
something higher because we got more products, and so we're gonna need more places to put them. So let me see if I can rest this right here. So that'll work. I'm gonna put that right back right here. That'll hold it up. And so let's go. Well, I'm gonna put this one here. I'm gonna put this right on top of the candles. All right, there we go. So, all right, y'all. So, again, support the work that we do. Join our Bring the Funk fan club. If you want to contribute to our show, please do so. Please do so by going to Stripe QR code. Use Stripe QR code. That's for Cash App and for credit cards. Checks and money order, make it payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered, P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C., 2003 7-0196. Make checks payable to Roland Martin Unfiltered. PayPal, R. Martin Unfiltered, Venmo, RM Unfiltered, Zelle, Roland at RolandSMartin.com, Roland at RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Download the Black Star Network app, Apple phone, Android phone, Apple TV, Android TV, Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Samsung Smart TV. If you want to get out Roland Martin Unfiltered Black Star Network swag, please do so by going to shopblackstarnetwork.com. Our hats, t-shirts, mugs, zip-ups, hoodies, all that stuff, our shirts, Don't Blame Me, Voted for the Black Woman, everything is available right there on our site, shopblackstarnetwork.com. And all of these products you see right here, folks, everything you see right here, you got the black-owned toilet paper leafy, you got Miss Jet Setter, the product we just talked about here. You got your Steam Dolls, Black Crossword Puzzles. You've got, of course, you got art and stuffed animals like this here. You got the candles over here. We got the, of course, the car wash solution. You name it. We got all those products, HBCU shirts. We've got chips. We've got sauces. We've got all sort of stuff. We got skincare. Yo, the brother, oh man, what's the shaving company we had on here? Man, let me tell you something. I've been, first of all, y'all, seriously, the razor blade, I've been using that blade. I got like 4 or 5. That sucker is heavy duty, high quality, fantastic. And even the brush, their brush for your shaving cream to apply it, because I can't stand hair on the neck. Oh, it just drives me crazy. So to apply it on here, it's a really heavy duty brush as well. So it's fantastic. But you got skincare products, you got all this sort of stuff. Every single thing that you see right here, y'all, is available on shopblackstarnetwork.com. They are all black-owned companies. We talk about the need to support black-owned companies, and so we created this segment marketplace, and then we created this to be able to showcase the products, because a lot of these companies also simply cannot afford the marketing that's needed. Like, for instance, you got this black-owned backpack company right here. So what happens is when you buy these products, you will also, a portion of the sales come back to support the show as well. And so this is an awesome way for us to support black-owned companies, for you to support this black-owned company as well. So shop blackstarnetwork.com. Y'all, share it with your friends, post it on social media. And so we're not talking about how we need to support black-owned companies. We are about that as well. One of those black-owned companies is Fanbase. Download the app Fanbase, and you see me on there. Follow me at Roland S. Martin. And so we want to hit 3 million subscribers total downloads with Fanbase. We want to build it up to 5 and 10, 20 million black folks. We make everybody else sexy. We blew up Clubhouse, we blew up Instagram, we blew up Twitter. We talked about Black Twitter. Well, we don't need to call it Black Twitter. And guess what? We didn't own Twitter. We called it Black Twitter, so we can just call it Fanbase. And so let's make that happen. Download the app. They got some new things that are coming down the pipeline. And so that's what we have to be about. We have to stop talking about we need to do this. We keep saying, folks say what we need. We already have what we need. The question is, do we support what we already have? This is a perfect example. Everything here, black-owned companies, they need your support as well, and so do we. Folks, that's it. I'll see you tomorrow right here, Roland Martin Unfiltered on the Black Star Network. Holla!